And right now we are 2 minutes away from the end of the trading day. Romaine Bostick here with Katie Greifeld, taking you through to that closing bell. It's a global simulcast. Carol Massar and Tim Stenovec join us now. Welcome to our audiences across all of our Bloomberg platforms, television, radio, our partnership with YouTube. Here on another topsy-turvy day in financial markets. Oil prices up, Carol Massar. Some stocks down. Gold, I'm told, not having the best day. Why are you smiling, Carol Massar?
All right, so we are watching the markets. I think it's been kind of an interesting day, trading on maybe a little bit of movement off of what we heard from the president.
Okay, I'm looking at oil right now. Brent is still higher despite the fact that the president did make comments about the end of the war in Iran. Carol was referencing that before I rudely interrupted her. I'm sorry, Carol.
No, that's okay.
You are right, though, that oil's still up by 3.6%. That's Brent. WTI, Katie, still up by 4.4% today, despite comments that the president made that the war is wrapping up.
Yeah, it's interesting to see that reaction in oil, especially relative to what we got yesterday. I have been looking at gold, and I have been for a while. I'm looking at it today because we're looking at a 10th straight day of losses. I will keep repeating this stat. That is a record daily losing streak when it comes to gold. And it's interesting, as we were just discussing with Quay Wynn over at Research Affiliates, Romaine, it still probably looks expensive right now.
Also, on the gold point, too, I mean, we talk about that big drop, and I was looking at the drawdown. I mean, we're something like 19% down from that all-time high back in January. We haven't quite gotten to where we were back in 2022 when we had more than 20% drawdown in there, but we are getting close to it. And a lot of lines in the sand, particularly on the technical levels, pretty much across all of the major asset classes as we get the closing bells here in New York. It is red across the screen for most of the major indices, with the Dow Jones Industrial Average down more than 80 points, or about 0.2%. The S&P 500 down 25 points, 6,556. That number is important, down about 0.4%, because that is a close below, once again, the 200-day moving average. The NASDAQ Composite down about 0.8%. And you did get a little bit of activity to the upside when it came to the Russell 2000. That closed higher, Carol, by 0.5%.
Yep, and going inside the S&P 500, you just gave the how the numbers closed, Romaine. But if I'm going to look at the S&P 500, you had about 286 names to the upside on this Tuesday, 217, Katie, to the downside.
Yeah, when you take a look at the sector levels, you definitely had more green than red. 7 sectors finishing in positive territory, just 4 finishing in the red. In terms of what did outperform today, energy as a sector higher by about 2%, getting back to what Tim was saying, what happened with Brent prices overall. Materials, utilities also on the leaderboard. In terms of what didn't do too hot on this Tuesday, communication services, a little bit of a wipeout there, down 2.5%. Real estate and then tech, that is the big red slice there, down about 0.7%, Carol.
All right, let's get to some of the individual gainers. And I'm going to pull up actually 2 boards, and this is an area that just was on fire today. And we're talking about coal stocks rallying. Take a look. Peabody Energy up about 8%. You had Core Natural Resources, a gain of more than 6%, almost a 6% gain on Hallador Energy. Flip it on over to the second board, and you've got Alliance Resource Partners. That, too, was up about 2.7%. You had Alpha Metallurgical Resources. That was a gain of almost 9% and more than 10% higher on Warrior Met Coal. These coal stocks climbing as that war in Iran, the U.S. war in Iran, continues, and there's tightened supplies of LNG, liquefied natural gas, and that's expected to increase demand for coal. So that is something that we are seeing in terms of a play. You got to keep in mind that LNG, some of the impact, the Qatar, we're talking about 30% of their capacity being knocked out. That is going to take something like 3 to 5 years to rebuild. So you are going to see folks looking for alternative energy suppliers and means, and that's why you've seen the coal sector really on fire today. And just for something different real quickly, ticker JHG, we're talking about Janus Henderson. That was up about 2.7%. That's after Trian Fund Management and General Catalyst Group increased their bid to buy the asset manager to fend off a competing offer from Victory Capital. And the amended agreement is for about $52 a share in cash. You saw the stock of Janus just closing above that mark, and that 52 is about a $3 all cash price increase. So we'll continue to watch that one. But again, another gainer. Tim, over to you.
All right, let's do a few decliners. I went with the whole index because software got so beat up today. This is the iShares Tech Software ETF down 4.3%.
Taking a lot of liberties today.
Got to do what you got to do. This after the information reported that AWS is developing an AI agent to automate some functions for sales, business development, and other groups that have been targeted in some sweeping job cuts. The agent being developed by AWS handles some of the workload of thousands of tech specialists in areas like cybersecurity and server networking. That's according to the report in the information. So we saw software stocks fall and remain lower throughout the day, down 4.3% for the iShares Tech Software ETF. Also, taking a look at what happened with shares of Uber today, they fell as the rideshare giant was reported to be in talks to acquire the German premium chauffeur services provider Blacklane. This is according to Manager Magazine. Exact details are unknown, but the company's valuation is likely to be in the high three-digit million euro range. That's according to sources close to Blacklane, according to Manager Magazine. Uber down today by about 3.7%. And finally, Circle Internet Group. This is the one that just soared after the IPO.
What's going on?
This is pretty wild. Down more than 20% today. It actually fell by more than 22% before bouncing off those lows. Worst day ever, partly as a result of potential changes to stablecoin regulation, but mostly too about concerns about a competitor. So Tether said today that it entered into a formal agreement with a Big Four accounting firm to complete its first full audit, creating speculation that the company could be preparing to move into the U.S. This according to a senior equity research analyst at Moness. Analysts believe also proposed changes to legislation could reduce incentives for holders to maintain balances in tokens rather than bank deposits. So make it more attractive to go back to the banks, less attractive to hold in stablecoins, which would affect Circle's revenue as well.
All right, let's take a quick look at where we stand in the yield space here. We actually did see pretty much an erasure of that drop in yields yesterday with almost parallel shift higher in the yield curve, though more activity, more selling that we saw on the 2-year yield, an increase of about 7 basis points on the day. The longer end 30-year yields up about 3 to 4 basis points.
Meanwhile, we do have some earnings, this coming from GameStop. Not a lot of details, but let me bring you the numbers that we do have. Fourth quarter net sales coming in at $1.1 billion. That is a decline of about 14% year over year. We're also getting adjusted EPS in at 49 cents. No comparison there. Also news coming through that GameStop won't be holding a conference call.
I was going to say I would just look forward to the conference call later
yeah,
for
GameStop. For some
GameStop.
detail there.
Which
You're not
they never do anymore. So
interesting though, the share is moving a lot after hours. They were down as much as 5%, but taking back some of those declines right now, Tim. So I don't know, maybe that conference call, traders after hours, not too disappointed here.
I guess if you don't have to do a conference call, why do one?
I don't know.
But this is kind of par for the course for GameStop. Shares down in the after hours, down by about 1%.
All right. So we won't be looking for headlines off of that call. Stock is, though, up almost 14% year to date, and it's about 16% of the float is short. Hey, Romaine, we did this story for you, actually, because we've been looking at all of those TSA lines that are happening around the country.
Yes.
And flyers are trying to figure out, do I get to the airport 2 hours, 3 hours, 6 hours ahead of time? Some are finding they need to give it that much time. Others are finding they get there and they're like, oh, the wait isn't so bad.
Well, the reason we want to do this for Romaine is because he had a real life experience with this over the weekend.
Well, first of all, slow your roll here because I actually have to fly tomorrow.
Sorry.
I'm a little nervous, and I've been intensely checking the TSA wait times at Newark Airport, which for some reason I have to fly out.
Have you considered driving?
It might be faster.
Yeah.
I mean, if you're going to wait in line for 3 to 4 hours, surprisingly, Newark for a change actually isn't the worst out there. Believe it or not, I think that's down.
What time is your flight? Maybe we can do a live call-in from you.
I was just thinking you could zoom in from the airport.
Yeah.
Give us an update.
Yeah, I do want to point out though, if you're at the Philadelphia airport, do you know what the longest line is there right now?
No.
It's for the cheesesteaks. Apparently, they decided that today would be the best day to set the Guinness World Record for the longest line of cheesesteaks. 1,200 feet of meat, cheese, and bread, enough to cover 4 football fields, was laid out across the airport's B&C connector. And you want to know what?
What?
Yeah.
It still wasn't as long as the TSA line.
Oh, too bad.
Oh, that sounds so sad. All right, guys, that is a wrap. Cheesesteak. Do you like cheesesteak?
Katie, you went to college in Pennsylvania.
Yeah, it's not for me.
I love a good cheesesteak.
It's
All right.
not for you?
Not
What?
for me. No eggs,
Okay.
Let's go
Eggs?
home.
What?
All right.
All right.
Cheesesteak?
On that,
That kind
Do you
of
even know
fizzled
what a
out there.
cheesesteak is?
I'm somewhat familiar with the concept.
No eggs.
Yeah, it's not
I think we have to go. I have to talk
cleaner
to Katie
source of
during the break.
protein.
All right.
Sorry.
Work that out. Work on it,
Yeah.
Romaine.
Yeah.